talk about self-love and the practice of loving myself as a Black woman. Honestly, I think that that's it's almost like it's like an ongoing thing, you know? I think there's something about mid-20s, end of your 20s, where it's like you've been through so much and you're finally at this place where it's kind of catching up with you. And so you're unpacking what you no longer need to create your new life. So I was talking to my friend about this. I'm like, girl, I feel like I'm in this space where it's like I'm unpacking the old and like stepping into the new. But I'm not all the way into the new, but I'm definitely shedding the old, you know? And I think one of the biggest things I can say in terms of like loving myself has been taking care of myself. You know, I think it's really something about like allowing God to be that like mother and father, you know what I mean, in your life, and taking on that and like heeding to that wisdom and inner knowing and wisdom and instruction, right? So it's like a father, you know, you continue to push yourself to become better. You push yourself after your goals, you know what I mean? And then, you know, as a mother, you nurture yourself, you know, and the nurturing piece has been the biggest thing for me. Like I spoke about this and just how for so many women's conferences, right? Every time Black women are communing, every time there's a women's conference, every time there's, you know, a summit for women or a panel, it's always a matter of how to make more money. How do we make more money? How do we, you know, start this $1 billion business? How do we build this brand? How can we scale? And I was just talking about how, you know, it's really at this point where Black women need nurturing, right? I think one of the things that really inspired me to start Gifts of Haven was I just realized how for so many Black women and Black girls, there's not a lot of nurturing there, right? I think Black women typically have the ability to nurture their sons. But I think when you start talking about young girls, it's a lot of, you know, it's a lot there, you know what I mean? And a lot of times it's something I'm not seeing. Like I remember I was in a clinic one time and there was a mother who came in with her daughter and, you know, she was yelling at the daughter. You know, I've even seen it in my own life, you know, family members calling, you know, relatives ugly, you know what I mean, for their own self-hatred. And when you think about that abuse, right, that maternal abuse in regards to Black girls, I mean, it's something that's so sinister, you know, it's something that really stays with you, you know? And so I think because of our attitudes in regards to Black girls, right? Oh, we're sassy, we're this, we're too much, we got an attitude, all these different things, you know, not really understanding that that's just girls. You know what I mean? I say this all the time. Like, why are we so afraid and apprehensive of like our daughters? You know, why are we so moody with them? You know what I mean? When they're literally just girls figuring out who they are, you know what I mean? I think for me, the lack of compassion is something that really plagues me. And so it was important for me to really look into that and like make sure that nurturing is probably one of the biggest things in regards to like my nonprofit. Cause it's like, I don't understand why we have such a hard time nurturing young women. You know, like why is it always seen as like this, you know, anytime a mother and her daughter has like a spat, because of the mother's wounding, right? A lot of times that's taken out on Black girls. And we know that for a lot of Black women, we know that within our community in general, right? There's a lot of unwanted pregnancies. And so I do think that a lot of times that abuse is kind of the byproduct of that. And that's something that really pains me, you know, because it's like no child has ever asked to be here, right? But it's just like the attitude that I've just kind of seen is like, it's all across the board. And it's not just with mothers, it's with teachers. I've seen it with fathers. You know, there was I'm not even gonna bring that up because the video was so crazy. Like I couldn't even believe how this guy was literally on, you know what I mean, saying that about his daughter. And I've heard fathers, you know, I read something that was saying that, you know, this girl asked her dad, she was like, you know, you raised me to be like a boy. And then the dad was like, I just raised you, you know? And if you've ever seen that movie, Hannah, right, where the daughter's with the dad and like, you know, he's training her up and she's like, you know, and so it's like, we appreciate dads for being in that, but young women need that nurturing. And I think that mothers have a tendency to coddle their sons, but not really nurture their daughters, or at least that was my experience. And so I do believe that, you know, my nonprofit is a byproduct of everything that I wanted and didn't receive. But I would say that in terms of that self-love journey, yeah, I think it's nurturing. You know, I really do think it's nurturing. Like, I really do think it's just like taking care of yourself and whatever that looks like for you. I know for me, it's really a journey. Honestly, it really is. I feel like I'm learning to kind of like nurture my more, I don't want to say softer edges, because I don't really want to get into like, the very basic femininity type of stuff. But I know that I have a lot of rough edges, I guess you could say. And I think in order to even, chisel some of that away, I think it was just kind of a matter of like loving that and realizing like, I am the way I am because of the experiences that I've been through, and I needed that. I actually needed to be that way, and I still have this, inner strength and like mental strength that I need to actually carry out my purpose, especially on this earth as a Black woman. But I definitely think in terms of like nurturing, I think you have to set aside time to like really nurture yourself and, figuring out like what it is that feels good to you. I do think that money helps, to be honest. I think as much as we try to be like, self-care, you don't always have to go out and buy this or do that, but I do think there is something about having a little stash, just a little stash, something slight, you know what I mean? Having that to be able to take care of yourself and do some of the things that you like treating yourself. Girls love pampering. Okay, let's just get it real, right? Like women, we love pampering. It is what it is, that's just what it is. You know what I mean? So I don't think we have to like really kind of beat around the bush in regards to that. I think a big thing for me, I would say, is really finding that time to like relax. And, it's really just like basic self-care things, to be honest. Like, I think that that's kind of like the biggest thing. And so obviously nobody's asking me a question, so I can't be like, well, what, specifically like what I would do in a certain situation. But I do think it really does fall in line with all the things as far as like taking care of your skin, taking care of your health. I know for me, I love cooking like a really good meal. That's just like the biggest thing for me. I would say that's probably one of my favorite self-care nurturing things, is like literally just feeding myself like really good food. I love being in nature. Like, I'm definitely someone who loves being in the woods. I am that hiker friend who's like, girl, look, we're going to the woods. Like, I love hiking. I love being outdoors. I love going on walks. That's just like my thing. And yeah, like making sure you get a good night rest. I'm not going to make this podcast too long because honestly, it's kind of drawing blanks for me. But I think in terms of like, nurturing, I would say always take time to kind of sit with yourself and your spirit and like get in tune with who you are and who God created you to be. Because I do think outside of, the monetary aspects, which it really is, a lot of times it is monetary. So don't think you're crazy if you feel in some type of way because you're not put up. Honestly, I think that all women deserve to be put up, period. We need to be put up. We need to be put up in the palace. Okay. We need to be put up with some coins, period. You know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds like, modern day rhetoric, but it is what it is. Like, I just think that all women deserve to be provided for. So that's what I said, and I'm standing on what I said. So I think outside of that, being in tune with your spirit, right? Like who you are, who God created you to be. And I think it's okay if you have to kind of pull back from some things and take some time to really sit with yourself, because, you're not always going to be in a position, or at least maybe you may not be in a position right now to be able to buy certain things and pamper yourself in the way in which you like. But I do feel like you can always take a step back and realize like, man, I love who I am. I love what I'm about. I love, the work that I do, the things that I'm into, like, and more so sit with like who God created you to be, you know what I mean? Like, and just, who you are, like as a person, you know what I mean? I can't say I entirely know how to like tell you how to do that. I know that that's like, and the reason being is because I do feel like I've spent so much time alone in my life that I feel like I've gone through that journey. So like looking back, hindsight, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm trying to like pin, like, how did I get from there to here? But I think it was just really like solitude, to be honest, like solitude, meditation, prayer, and like writing. You guys know, like, I'm a writer, so I'm always going to be advocating for you to write and journal and things like that. But I don't know. I think that this is probably we're going to wrap up this podcast. I don't think that I'm the person to maybe talk about self-love and self-care because, again, like I said, like I said, I do think that, having certain needs met, monetary needs met, I do think that makes a huge difference in your self-care journey. Do I think it always has to be like a lot of money? No, but I do think that it helps. And I'm not going to be I'm not going to be the woman who tells you that it doesn't. That's just not going to be me. That's not going to be me. Okay. I got to keep it real. Got to keep it 1,000. Okay. So yeah, I don't think you got to be like completely flushed out. Like, I don't think you have to have you don't have to have a lot of money. I think you can still find little ways, but I do think that just like treating yourself, I guess too, as I'm saying this, like, I think it kind of depends on your love language, right? Like in terms of like nurturing yourself, like I said, for me, it's little things that I like doing for myself. Like, I'm into skincare. I'm into just and I don't say skincare in terms, because I'm not like someone who's like, I got a 7-step skincare routine. But for me, it's like, I love just taking care of my skin. Like, that's just what I love to do. Like, I love putting on really clean products. I love certain pajamas, you know what I mean? And then my thing is I always make my tea when I'm getting out of the, before I get out of the shower. So my tea is steeped and it's ready to go. And I got my books or whatever I'm going to be doing while I'm laying in bed, which I should be sleeping. A lot of times realistically it's that laptop, unfortunately. But it's doing just setting, so for me, it's acts of service. That's one of mine, but you may be into something else. And I also know for me, it's gifts. So that's why I'm also saying money. But I think it depends on yourself, and I think one thing I can say as I'm getting older, and almost I'm really getting older for real. But one thing I can say as I'm getting older is, you'll get to a point where if you're younger than me, or if you're in this space, this is maybe confirmation for you. You really will get to that place where you're like, this is who I am. And this is just what it's going to be. You have to accept yourself, right? I talked about that transition space where you realize okay, I've had some experiences, childhood experiences or whatever, where I was a victim, I didn't get to decide, but now I'm shedding that, okay, I've healed. I see what it made me. This attitude, this type of coping mechanism, or this belief or whatever is no longer serving me. I got to dead this, and then you step into who you are and you're okay, you know what I mean? I know that this has always been me, regardless, take it or leave it. You know what I mean? Because it's this is just who I am. I've always been this way. So, you will find yourself in that space. And honestly, I think that feels very authentic. And I think you'll start to kind of nurture yourself from that space, because you realize who you are and what you need. And you're not going to feel bad about your needs, because you're look, it is what it is. This is what I need, And I think that, getting your needs met in whatever sense, for you, you'll definitely find yourself in a space where it's okay, this is very nurturing, for me. And yeah, I think just scheduling time for play, like I said, I think in regards to Black women, we're booming right now. Entrepreneurship is up, things are up. But I do think at the end of the day, we're still women, and, nobody really I'm tired. We get tired. Nobody wants to always kind of be in this space where it's work, get a bag, like I said, we're going to do that anyway. But I do think that scheduling time to just kind of play and just have fun and just laugh. I know for me, I'm big on having fun. And my motto this year was actually work hard, but play harder, because I feel I've been working so hard. And honestly, I feel that way, but I never really feel the work is it never really feels enough. So it's I think I may discredit myself a little bit, because I'm am I really working hard? But yeah, your girl be working. But I think when you look at your journey and how far you got to go, so it's kind of I don't know, maybe the acknowledgement falls a little short on me. But anyway, I'm going to end the pod here. Like I said, I didn't want this to be too long. And then I think I talked about this before, but surrounding yourself around Black art, I think that's important, especially for Black women. You need that, in your space, that creates a sense of warmth, and so I really look forward to doing that for myself. I really want to be able to have a lot of Black art in my home. I think that that will be good for Black men and Black women, you know, like have Black art in your home, have images that are empowering, you know, specifically if you can get them from Black artists, that's great. If you got some PDF prints, that's cool too. But I think if you can get like some real art, you know, from Black artists, and, you know, you've got these really powerful images, I think that that really can do a lot for your self-esteem and just even create an environment that's very nurturing, right? And that's the last thing I would say too. You may not have all the money in the world, right? Which obviously nobody does, but, you know, I just had to kind of throw that out there for my closing. But I do think if you can find a way to create your space and make that very warm and comforting for you, then I think you'll always feel like nurtured. You know, I think part of being a woman is being able to really make a home, you know, make a house a home. And so, you know, if it's your room, if it's your place, like make sure that it is surrounded by the things that you really love, and make sure that it feels very warm and it feels very inviting. You know, y'all know your girl's low key, and, you know, I'm low key an interior designer. But make sure that your space is, you know, it mirrors you, you know, and make sure that it's a space that catches you when you're down. Make sure it's a space that nurtures you back to health, back to life. You know, my mom is really good at that. She has like a bunch of plants. And I remember I got COVID, just the oxygen in, you know, her place, just the oxygen in the air from the plants. Oh my God, it's like it nursed me literally back to life. Like, I'm not even kidding. So yes, create that. And lastly, you know, we talked about Black entertainment. I've been talking about that a lot. Y'all know I'm not letting up. Please make sure that you listen to music that is not degrading. Like, I think as much as you, like, the more you hear something, one thing I can say this too about like exposure, right? Like, you have to be mindful of exposure, because the more you hear something, the more you adapt to it and the more normal it becomes to you. And, you know, I mentioned, I don't know if it was this podcast or the other one, but I mentioned, you know, following this Black journalist, or just following this journalist. Well, she was Black, but following this journalist, and, you know, her, you know, sharing a rap song from, like, a new rap song from one of the female artists. And because I don't really listen to a lot of new music, I just think it's trash. Not all, but I just think for me, I think, honestly, let me not say it's trash, because I don't think it's trash. I think that there's, you know, the art is art, right? Let me respect the art, if nothing else, I guess. Well, you know, okay, I'm not going to get on my cultural criticism. Moving forward, you know what I mean? I'm a little bit older, so I don't think it's really my vibe. It's not really my flow, you know? And people say I have an old soul, which I think is funny, but honestly, I think I'm just like getting older. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be that person who like shows you guys all the clips, but I really feel like I'm someone who is aging gracefully, you know? And I'm grateful to be able to like grow and mature, you know? Like, I don't know. I think for me, it's like, as much as I'm still very young. I recognize that, but I'm not 21. You know, I'm not 19, you know? So I think for me, I talk about this a lot, but like, I really do think there is something about like, it's okay to grow up, you know? So anyway, not to get too deep, but I don't really listen to a lot of new artists because it's not really in my age range. But outside of that, you know, the more you hear something and it's like, you know, it feeds you with the sense of pride, you know, and it feeds you like, you know what I mean? And it feels good to kind of look down on a person, because I think that's all pride does. It kind of puts you on a pedestal. You look down on other people and you know what I mean? But I think that after a while, that kind of starts to play a role on your self-esteem, because what happens when you can't buy the new bag or the new shoes or the new hairdo or whatever the case may be, you know, you'll be left empty. So I think you should try your best to at least schedule some time where you listen to something that's like inspirational. You know, when I was in my early 20s, I was listening to so much Miles Monroe and just like other motivational speakers. Like, I had to get my mind right, you know? So I think, you know, all in all, like, lastly, you know, try to listen to things that speak life into you. You know, try to listen to things that empower you. Try to listen to things that, you know, are maybe even nurturing or maybe even healing. Right? I've been on the self-care tip in terms of like YouTube content creators, and I love it. Like, I never thought I would love it so much, but I absolutely love it. Like, I love just seeing people walk their dogs. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know, like, it's just been so like, it's so cool to me, you know? So, I mean, I guess everyone's kind of been listening to this type of content, but watching this type of content, but yeah, it's pretty cool, you know? So try to find some things that are peaceful, that's the end of my pod. And yeah, surround yourself with other people who like themselves and like love themselves, because that will help you as well. I've kind of found this thing where it's like when you're authentic, you're definitely gonna make people who are inauthentic uncomfortable. They're not gonna like you. And sometimes, if you're sensitive, if you're someone who's like sensitive and you're empathetic, you may look into that and like, oh my gosh, like I am being rejected, and you may be sensitive to rejection, but it's not really you. It's totally them. Peace.